getting the thumbs up. Right, welcome everybody to the first Children's Services meeting after the summer holiday. I hope you've all had a nice summer break. Just to remind you that this meeting is being recorded, live streamed via YouTube, so if you can press your button to speak when you want to speak. Press the button for the microphone when you want to speak. Okay, I have been asked if we can move forward agenda item 6 to be the first item in the overview section, because we've got something going up on the screen, so it just makes it easier just to start with that. But first of all, we'll start with the business side. So do we have any questions from members of the council or members of the public? No? Any apologies for absence? Yeah.
Councillor Hendricks and Councillor McHugh substituting, and apologies from Councillor Solomon for lateness.
Thank you.
Apologies from Councillor Hill, with Councillor Royden taking his place.
Thank you, councillors. And I believe we've also got apologies from David Morton. Thank you. Right, minutes of the previous meeting on the 4th of July. Is everyone happy that they are a true record of that meeting? There's a few of us were here. Thank you. I'll sign those at the end if that's okay. Do we have any disclosures of local and or disclosable pecuniary interests? Councillor Wheeler?
Yes, Chair. On item 5, I'm on the fostering panel.
Thank you. Councillor McHugh?
It's a technical question. I just wonder whether there's any latitude in the control booth to realign the cameras, because it's pointing between the two of you. When it's meant to be on the chair, it's between the two of you. It might be because we've moved microphones, but it's not showing you when you're speaking.
Oh no, it's got my water bottle. There we are. Oh, they've moved it. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor McHugh. I hadn't seen that. So it would have been gone on like that. I also declare an interest as a member of the fostering panel, so if it's needed. Okay, thank you. Everybody else okay? Super. So we'll move straight on to the overview section. Question 6, primary school selection, advice to parents. Chris Morris is going to lead us on that.
Thank you. And hopefully the technology will work. I'm going to attempt to share my screen, so just to make things more complicated. But obviously the question that was posed, and I think actually it was a question that was posed by, I'm going to get his last name wrong, by the council around actually the support that's offered for when children are starting primary school. And I think, Councillor Martin Moran-Bryant made the point around actually some of the information that we as a local authority share is quite factual. Information about names of schools, what their published admission number is, what details with regards to how many children they accepted. But actually starting school is, or choosing the right school for your child is so much more than just looking at, your local school or what the details of how many children applied to that school were. And so I think the point that was raised was a very valid one, and from that Overusing and Scrutiny Committee where Councillor Martin Moran-Bryant raised it, officers within the local authority have been looking at what else that we can be doing to support within this. And it's quite timely because what I'm going to be sharing is a test site, so anyone watching on YouTube or anyone who's watching on pre-recorded or anything, please bear in mind, and those in the room, that the site that I'm about to share is still in its testing stage, but it's very close to being finalised. And it's something that we're calling Best Start Bedford Borough. So if I share my screen, and good luck everyone. Okay, screen has been shared. So it's not the largest on your screen there, and thank you in the technical booth for making it as large as we can. But we envisage Best Start Bedford Borough being a family directory aimed at all parents and carers, foster carers, special guardians, anyone who is caring for an under 5, as being the one-stop place within Bedford Borough where you can get information about health, where you can get information about education, childcare choices, information about what things are on, not just even just, what about childcare options, but also where's Mr. Bojangles playing this week, or whatever it may well be in terms of whatever group. And we've had lots of really positive co-production sessions with a range of parents, varying from all sorts of different ages. But one of the sections that we're really keen on is around the early years education and childcare sections. That's what I'm going to talk about today. So if I click on this link, the options around choosing the right childcare for you and your family, and it talks about these are the different options that you might have, and you could find information about childminders, nurseries, preschool, starting childcare and starting school advice. So again, this would be where we'd be directing families to. You'll see on the screen, I'm just double checking it is tracking, we have some sections on here around what to consider when looking at a primary school. We have a link to our direct starting school admissions page. We have information about supporting your child to settle in, and also what to look for on open day. And these are things that we've co-produced with parents. These were the key things that we were being asked for. But again, one of the beauties around the creation of this website and the links to it is that actually we'll have the ability to amend, adapt, update it as we go along. So we don't anticipate that we'll be launching this website as it's a done deal, and that's all it's going to be. It's going to be a website that we can continually build and add to. So for example, then we can link to external sites, which is one of the things that we will have here. So for example, Bounty have a very positive page around what to consider when choosing the right school for you. So starting school at the beginning of a new adventure, but how you choose which school for you is best for your little one. And there's some expert advice there around sort of fairly general tips, but thinking ahead, will they get in? How is the school performing? And information about, finding out what else you can do. So the good thing about linking to externals is that actually it's up-to-date information. We can make sure the links are always, we check our links every single week through the technology that we have. We have information about supporting your child to settle in. So again, a link to an external. Oxford Owls, a really, really strong and really good positive website. Number one, those of us that have been there, in terms of be prepared for a very tired child. I'm sure there's many parents this week who are, make sure you pack your snacks when you pick them up. There are those sort of things around what to do to really help your child to settle in and start at school. And finally, obviously, we've got some information here about what to look for on an open day. And this is linked to the Good Schools Guide around making sure you listen to the presentation, the heads talk if that's given, what questions you might want to ask, and also what to ask of anyone at primary school teachers, and don't make sure you're asking these questions and being really clear about it. As I said, this website at the moment is so you'll see there's a bit of a thing where it says local offer. It's not the local offer website. It's just the technology that we're building it on at the moment. The test site is very much the same company as what's built our local offer. But when we go live, it will be changed to Best Start Bedford Borough. Will be the name of the URL at the top. And what's really positive is we've got our Starting Schools booklet that goes out online, but goes out every single year. And again, it's always really well received, but we're adding in these headings into that booklet. So actually, when parents are looking at that information about all the different schools, published admission numbers, linked to the latest Ofsted, there will also be information at the beginning to help them, especially if you're a new parent, first time you're choosing your primary school. It's really vital. We don't want to be just seen as, well, these are your options and where we go. We recognise that for many parents it's a really big decision. But also at the same time, alongside all of these things, it's really important that we also are stressing that parents do have to consider everything when choosing their schools. Transport is a really big consideration. If you are, the cost of living is a crisis is upon us and is still continuing to be on us. If you may be okay transporting your child by car now, is that going to continue for the next 7 years? These are really important things that we think is worth us sharing this information at the beginning so that everyone can make an informed choice. So I mean, as I said, it was a verbal update. Apologies, it was not a paper, but I thought actually hot off the press, we're hoping that we're recording our launch video in the next 2 weeks with some parents, local children, and we'll be hoping to launch Best Start Bedford Borough, similar to how we launched with our local offer, which is, this is our starter, help us to build it to make it the best directory. And we're really positive. I know we're here to talk about starting school, but our links with health, the information there about preconception all the way through to starting childcare, starting nursery, starting school, finding local groups, stay and play, what's on at your children's centre. we're really positive and really hope that this Best Start Bedford Borough website is going to be a resource that's well used and well loved by the local community.
Thank you, Chris. That looks really good. So do I have any questions? Councillor Wheeler.
Firstly, this is fantastic. I've sat in many open parent evenings and seen what obviously the great effort the staff do trying to get as much information as possible. This is really good. One of the questions I have is guidance on school uniform. Obviously, with the cost of living and what's going to happen, school uniform is frightening, and it's been able to say to parents that, you can go to Tesco's, you can help get the right, it can be a red top, it doesn't have to be, obviously school logo. I did have a meeting this morning at our local school about this, and one of the things that came up was some councils offer help towards shoes, and as you know, children are in their shoes all day, and cheap shoes will obviously affect their feet. So I don't know if it's something that Bedford Borough have done in the past or something they can think about, but assisting certain families with shoes I think will be a great asset. And also giving allowance with the school uniforms, the help. Obviously the policies, I know everybody has to stick to a school uniform, but it's just trying to be a little bit more flexible and possibly in the guideline, just saying, a white shirt, a white polo shirt. But I think it's really good, well done. But that was just a point from my experience, and certainly the meeting that I had this morning.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Wheeler. And the issue of support for school uniform is obviously very pertinent, both at the start of term, but also in the current situation we find ourselves in. I mean, we do have Harper Trust to provide a grant for low-income families on free school meals at key transition points in Bedford Borough. But we are always, looking at what else we might be able to do to try and support, and especially those families that are struggling. So I would take that back, and we'll have the consideration around what might or might not be possible for us as a local authority with that support. And to the point around school uniforms, obviously there has been guidance now issued from the Department for Education for schools, which should have come into effect for this academic year, which is really advising schools against overusing logoed school uniform. Around the point, please minimise it as much as possible. That's something that we've been preaching as a local authority for quite some time now, around actually trying to make uniform, as you said, your Tesco's, your supermarkets, your market white T-shirt and your shorts is absolutely where we want to be. Most of our schools, that is sufficient. That we do not want to be pricing people out of the cost, or not deciding to come in on a PE day because they haven't got adequate PE equipment. That's not where we want to be. So we are continually looking at what we can do, working with our academies and working with our maintained schools to see what they make sure they're doing everything they can to support families, and make sure we're doing everything we can to try and support them to be able to do that.
Thank you, Chris. Councillor,
Councillor
Leader, sorry.
Okay, thank you. First of all, thanks for the presentation. And I agree with Councillor Whelan. It's a good piece of work, and I'm sure it'll prove very useful in the future. The only question I'd ask is how will parents actually find this? How will they access this? Simply just by going on the website, or will someone guide them in the right direction? Because obviously a lot of parents have these questions, because I pick up these in my school government meetings as well, and like you said, open evenings and such. How will they actually know where to go to find this? Is it just simply going on the Bedford Borough website?
So I think one of the things that we do...
Yeah, it's off, yeah. Oh.
There we go. Okay. So I think one of the things that using our learning that we've had from things like when we've launched our local offer website, is around, social media is really powerful, and we'll be making sure that we have a social media presence to be pushing these messages out there. We'll be making sure that we have the information in our starting school booklets, in our information within all of our schools. We will have posters that are put up, both not only within our our schools, but also shameless plug. If any of you have got parish council, posters that we could put up into the notice boards within your wards as well, that would be something that'd be really vital. But we also know when launching anything new that simply doing it online is not going to be enough, because obviously we know we've got some matters of digital poverty, and also we know that it will take some time for word of mouth to keep coming out and keep spreading. So we'll have a launch campaign, we'll have campaigns through our social media, as well as a poster campaign to get the messages out. But as I said, in terms of, we're really positive that we're co-producing this with our colleagues from health, within midwifery, within community midwifery, within health visitors. So at many points that we'll try and get the messages out again in our nurseries, our childminders, and also through the groups, because it's a bit of a win-win. If you're a private entity who's providing a group that you want parents to be aware of, you'll be promoting the best part of Bedford Borough, because that's the one-stop place where you can go on a calendar and you can see all the different groups that are available. So we're trying to work with both our maintained nurseries and also our private organisations working in this field to try and get the word out there. And again, a plea to all councillors in the room and listening on is your support in trying to get this out to your constituents would be really valuable in getting the message out there as well.
Councillor Akhtar, did you have a question?
Okay, yeah, it's a really good presentation. Just one question: how would parents with little English be able to access the website and the resources? Are they in different languages, or?
It's a great question very dear to my heart. So the technology that we're using will have the same technology that we use for our local offer website, which means that it can be translated into every language that Google Translate is able to do it. It will have read aloud and text-speech browse aloud. So that also has the technology of being able to convert text into speech. It has overlays. So to try and support not just those with English as additional language, but many of our parents themselves may have learning difficulties or literacy issues as well. So we want to make this the most accessible site, and we are aware, we know from data, for example, that 12% of our local offer visitors are translating the website when they get there. We can see what they're translating the languages to, and then that will also help us to try and keep that promotion going, to make sure that we are promoting it in different languages, make sure that our subtitles are on and when we're doing our launch videos as well. But again, any support from those with links into the communities that actually can help us to get this message out there. Because when we've co-produced it, I've tried to make sure that we have co-produced with people of many different sort of backgrounds and different languages. However, I also know that the best thing sometimes to be is to have those within the community also helping to champion these websites. So any support would be most valuable from anyone who has those links.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've got a list of questions that Councillor Martin Moran-Bryant sent to me, and I've forwarded it to you now, Chris, so if I miss anything you can pick up please on these. But one that hasn't actually been covered yet is she knows that parents struggle with things like data and how to actually distinguish one school from another. I know on the site which you kindly sent to us earlier it showed, they talk about go and get your gut feeling and all that sort of thing. But she also feels that we need parents to understand more about what is a successful school and what is not, if that's what they're looking for, and that way we can hold schools more to account. And she has asked if there can be something that helps parents understand that. Following on from that, I just thought that perhaps we need something then when parents choose secondary schools, because again, data becomes slightly more important at that point, I guess, for parents. And there's nothing at the moment that actually supports parents choosing a secondary school. So that was from Philippa.
Yeah, and I think the points that she raised. I mean, I think we need to be clear about what we're presenting and what we're sharing as facts. But I also think we also need to be really clear around, there is more to what is a successful school sometimes than also, for some parents they can be looking at. So I think we need to share as much information as we can, and making sure that we have information on data and key stage 2 results, and also focusing on that. I mean, for some parents, again, the understanding about the Progress 8 score and actually where schools are taking pupils and then where those pupils are leaving. That journey that they take pupils on, some parents may be more interested in that than just the ultimate aim, end goal of where the results are. But yeah, we absolutely need to making sure that parents are able to access the data that they want to, make informed decisions, and that again will link back to, but also making sure that they are aware that parental preference and their choice around where they send, and transport issues and different things along those lines. So absolutely, I think we want to make sure we are as open and transparent, and we're arming parents with as much information. But I also think we should make sure what we are sharing as parents too, and then make sure it's the right information for them as well as for their child.
I think it's more a case of because parents look at the data. I think a lot of parents who aren't sort of involved in it on a day-to-day thing and don't really understand what it all means. And I think that's what she's asking, that if we can have some way that we can explain to parents, this is what this means when you see this in the school's data. So not necessarily listing out all the different schools and their data, but actually having some sort of almost tutorial type thing within there to help them understand what they're looking at when they do go to the school's websites.
Absolutely, I think we can, as part of that, how to choose your school, your child's school section, I think we could have something understanding the data and with some key sort of crib around, when you see RWM, that's reading, writing, maths, or those different things on those lines, just to make sure, I'm sure we can make sure that information is prevalent and present on the website.
Thank you. And what about the choosing, moving on from this? I mean, this is great, and I think it's brilliant. It's such a great step forward. But then there will be parents who are at the point of choosing their secondary school. So we really need some help for them, don't we, as well as the next stage. So
yeah, and we're in the same boat around the starting school booklet. Is obviously then there's the transfer booklet, which is the same premise, just slightly thinner because there's less secondary schools. But we'll make sure that we have the same information there and make sure it's tailored to those views. But again, that point around making the most out of your open day, actually, for a lot of the information, that's on there, it talks about speaking to the pupils that you meet and interact with, and asking them how they think of the schools and the staff. I mean, you're not really probably going to be doing that in a primary school open day. It's more around that's more for secondary. So we'll have to make sure that we are linking the right information. But yeah, absolutely making sure that parents are. And we also know that when it comes to secondary, parents are there's much more movement out from just not your local school. There are two other choices. So we know many parents are making those informed decisions now as to where they think is the best fit for their child. So if we again can arm them with more information, then that can only be a good thing.
super, thank you. Any further questions? No. So when do you expect the launch to be for this? We won't hold you to it, but just sort of roughly.
The $1 million question. I mean, we are anticipating, as I said, we have a video ready to launch. We are in the process, our developers are just finalising the URL. So we anticipate, I mean, the end of the month as well, I'd be aiming for this. But again, I just need to speak to a couple of officers just to make sure we've got everything ready to go. But from what I've seen, I think as soon as that launch video is ready, because again, the point is, I feel our successes when we've done these similar things has been not trying to launch the perfect finished article. We'll be launching it with us, help us to make this the most perfect launch article. So we want parents to come forward and say, have you thought about this, or this would be great, or you've forgotten this group, or my child goes to this stay and play session but I can't see them on there, please get them on there. So we'll be launching it very much in the aim of we're building this, help us to make it the best website that can be. Because again, when we did that with the local offer, that worked really well. Because again, if you launch something as if it's perfect, people will pick flaws in it. If you launch something as if it's already going to be actually something that we can grow and develop together, then people will help us to kind of go, actually, yes, you maybe you've missed out on something there, we can work on it, or maybe you can send the information. We want to be seen to be building this and co-producing this with the communities that are going to benefit from it.
Great, thank you. Yeah, really positive. I think everybody here agrees. Thank you, Chris. Lovely. So we're back to not sharing your screen now, so all that technology's worked, that's good. So we move on now to item 5, which is placement stability for children looked after in the 2 years to August 22. Is that you, Harmish? Okay, over to you.
That is me. Thank you, Councillor Walker. There's a report available, and as you said, this is about placement stability. Placement stability is something that we monitor very carefully, and it is also a national indicator 63. And this report details our performance from the period August 2020 to August 2022. I won't read through the entirety of the report, but you'll see from the details, it talks about what I've just said about why we measure this. This indicator measures all placement types, not just foster care placements. So in order to get an overall picture of placement stability across the cohort of children in our care. So our current performance shows that 58.6% children in stable placement, and our target for this indicator is 65. So at the moment, that's ranked as amber. We have some work to do on that. And you'll see in the report that there are some details around both planned moves, because we have to remember that moves for children some moves are positive, planned moves, such as moves into adoptive placements or to other permanent arrangements for children. And then the report also details some unplanned moves, and during that period 23 children had some unplanned moves, and there's some details in the report as to why. And then further along, the report details what we are doing currently to promote placement stability. And it details some of the work that we're doing around matching, around placement planning, and then importantly, work that we're completing to make sure placement support is in place to promote placement stability, such as stability meetings. Also, one of the areas that we are strengthening is our permanency planning meetings and family finding. So we're moving that much closer to what we do for adoption, to make sure that same rigour is applied when we are looking to match children to foster placements. There's also some detail around the sufficiency of placements and the work that we're currently undertaking in relation to trying to recruit and retain more in-house foster carers, and just some detail on some of the challenges there are around that. But as I say, that is a piece of work that we are working hard on, and we know that will have a huge impact if we can make sufficient progress in terms of placement stability, and also, importantly, it keeps down costs as well for placements. So happy to take any questions on the report.
Anyone got any questions? Well, sorry, you're going to ask a question, Councillor Wheeler.
I've got a comment, sorry.
Okay, go ahead with the comment.
The report's really good, and as I mentioned before, I'm on the fostering panel. I spent a year just observing, and now this is my first sort of proper year. And what's impressed me, sitting and listening to the reports from the borough officers, the details that they do to make sure that these children hopefully have a much happier and better life. And it's really encouraging. Sometimes you sit there after 3 or 4 hours and you think, gosh, you know, I'm still here. But the big but is, you know, without that, without all the work that you do, and it's something I never realised as much, you know, until I sat there. And I know Councillor Walker's also on, you know, it is fantastic, and it's really encouraging to see what the borough is doing to help these children. And yes, some of the cases are horrendous. There's some massive challenges, but it's a care that you give, and I think the fostering parents are just brilliant. There's some amazing people there, and it's fantastic, these people. You know, we can't applaud them, but it'd be lovely to give them all a round of applause because it is incredible. So thank you once again. Really good report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeler. I completely agree with the comments that you've made in terms of the work that officers do. They are extremely diligent in terms of making sure that the information is available for fostering panel. And as you've said, and thank you, Councillor Walker, for being part of that process. It's a very rigorous process. We try and make sure that we match children really well. I think you're right. A huge thank you and applause that goes out to our foster carers who do an amazing job. We would like more of them to join us, because what we know is, particularly some of our in-house carers, you know, they really do go, over and above. And in terms of thanking them, we are having a celebration thank you event that's coming up. I think that's going to take place in November, and there's some other events, because we really do need to recognise, you know, the hard work and the care that our foster carers, you know, deliver for our children. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Councillor Wheeler. Yeah, I think it's a good report, and as you say, it's such an important thing to keep the placements stable, and we've seen that with the results, that the children who are in stable placements get the best results. But it's just struck me that it's the older ones, isn't it? And I guess that in families, everybody has those sort of moments when the children get older, and it's just, how do we build that resilience into our foster carers that, you know, we all need in all our families, I think, isn't it, with the teenage children. But it's shocking and a shame that it is all the older ones that seem to be breaking down.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. I think that's a really good question, and you're right. We have particular challenges around adolescence. We have to remember that a lot of adolescents have had some really traumatic experiences. They've experienced separation, loss, and they reach an age where some of those experiences that they have manifest themselves sometimes in behaviour which foster carers, despite all their efforts, do find really difficult to manage. What we are trying to do to address that is as we talk about the placement stability meetings, we're trying to put as much support in place as possible, identify those issues early. And as Councillor Wheeler said, the reports that are done for children for panel, so some of the reports that contain a lot of detail around their experience, it's about making sure that we really we work on that at the earliest possible stage to make sure that children and young people who have had those experiences receive the therapeutic support that they need so that they can thrive in their placements. I think one of the other factors that we just need to be mindful of as well, with more social media, with more contact with birth families, and more things, that does sometimes have an impact on some settled placements. And when adolescents reach a certain age, they will make certain decisions. That can be quite disruptive sometimes for placement. So what we try and do, and as I talked about our approach to fostering with adoption, as you'll know, we have really encouraged contact post-adoption. And so it's really important that we get our plans for children to maintain contact with their birth families, right? So that will help stabilise placements as well, because they want, rightly so, they want to see their birth families as well. So it's about addressing all of those factors to make sure that we are providing the best possible stability we can. Because as you say, Councillor Walker, what we know is when we have stable placements, those children and young people, they will thrive and they will do better, and then they go on to do they go on to be productive in later life. So it is a really important piece of work. And as I say, hopefully, Councillor's assured that the work that we're undertaking hopefully will have a positive impact on placement stability.
Lovely, thank you. Anything else from anyone? No. Okay. Well, thank you, Harmish. And look forward to. I mean, as you say, you can't, I don't. That target is, we're below the target, but you can. It's good to see the reasons for that, and to see that some of them are positive moves as well as the negative. So thank you. Okay. So our final report is refugee children. Is that back to you? Okay. Thanks, Harmish.
Thank you. Yes, back to me. So this is a report on unaccompanied and separated children. Again, I won't go through the whole of the report, but I'll just pick out some key bits from the report. Obviously, the local authority has statutory duty to unaccompanied and separated children, and there's just some detail in the report about which team within Children's Services deal with most of these young people, and that is our 16 plus supporting futures team, although we have a couple of children because of their age within the permanency team. You can see the referral process, these separated children come in via Yaleswood Detention Centre, sometimes they're picked up by the police, but also through the National Transfer Scheme, and that was made mandatory in November 21 and requires each local authority to accept transfers from the main sort of ports or where children and young people are coming in. And this is a legal obligation to ensure that each local authority gets a fair distribution. And I just want to make a point, since the writing of this report, our duties have increased. Well, the percentage of children of population under 18 has increased. It used to be 0.07 and it's now moved to 0.1. So in figures, that means our ceiling has moved from 28 to 41. And that is a recent, it is quite a move. So that happened. We got notification after the report had been written. And you're just going down the report, you'll see the numbers that we currently have and the countries of origin. And I think, I won't go through the whole looked after process, but what I will say is that the culture at Bedford Borough is that these are unaccompanied separated children, but they are treated no differently than any other looked after children who come into our care. And in fact, I think it's really important to note that these children have again suffered the trauma of conflict, travelled huge distances, extremely dangerous distances, they're separated from families. So some of them are extremely traumatised, and we have to make sure that the support that they require is in place. And understandably, a lot of these children are really desperate to make contact with their families again. So we do try wherever, but we work with the Red Cross referral for family tracing, and obviously, as we say, we will put whatever therapeutic support we can in place for them. And the other point that I just make is obviously a lot of the majority of these children, young people, don't speak English when they arrive. So there are all sorts of barriers in addition to the trauma that they've experienced and the separation and loss. And I'm really proud of how our teams work with them, because they really do take the time, care and attention to make sure that support is in place. There's just a couple of bits on some legal aspects about Merton compliant age assessments, because obviously when children arrive, they will say how old they are. If they, just to assure councillors that if they look under 18, we accept them as under 18. Where we will only do those age assessments where they are. It looks like that the information that we're given it doesn't marry up. So we try and avoid putting young people through unnecessary age assessments. And then just on the rest of the report, in terms of the support, the education, employment and training. So as we say, on arrival, all those who become looked after are enrolled at school. if of statutory school age, or they're supported to enrol at college, to undertake ESOL, so English as a second or other language, maths and functional skills. So currently there are 9 unaccompanied children post 18 out of 65 who are showing as neat and not in employment and education. But you know, we've had some real success stories with our unaccompanied separated children who've been to made it to university. What we find that you know a lot of these children, young people, are just desperate to be given the opportunity to be able to learn and you know in a safe environment, and they make the most of it when they're given that opportunity. So I've obviously skimmed through the report. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
Yeah,
Councillor Reader.
thank you, Chair. Once again, I welcome this report, and I look at the chair or Jane on this one. I don't recall ever having a report like this at Children's Services before, so it's a new one for me, and it's certainly a bit of an eye-opener actually. So I thank you for bringing it to Children's Services. I think the question I was going to ask, I think you've already answered it because you said you don't do unnecessary age checks. But the thing that jumped out to me on this report was 5.1, Yarlswood Detention Centre. It says a young person will have been picked up by border force or by the police and placed in a detention as an adult. Once they claim to be a child and under 18 years, children's social care and responsible for blah, blah, blah. So it goes on to talk about that. But what I'm saying, it just seems a little bit strange to me that they'd be put into the detention centre before their age is assessed. That would seem an unnecessary stress. That's the way that I would read that report.
Thank you, Councillor Meader. That's a really good point. And quite frankly, that's about age assessments not being done at the point of arrival. I mean, we you know, obviously we don't want to see any children going into a detention centre, but unfortunately that situation occurs because of things that are happening prior to them coming into the local authority care. And you're right, as I say, you know, we really try and avoid unnecessary age assessments. These children have already been through enough. It's only the ones where we think there is a genuine question mark over age. And then, again, as detailed in the report, we will complete Merton compliant age assessments done by qualified social workers who are trained to do those assessments. And they do those assessments in the most sensitive possible way.
Yeah, and just to follow on from that, there's a really good process in place between us and Yarlswood. So when we do get a notification, we respond really quickly, whether that's in the daytime or out of hours. In fact, when it's out of hours, then Harmish or I will get a call at any time of the day or night to make sure that that we give the authorisation for that process to run smoothly and quickly, so that young person, as soon as they are identifying themselves as a child, then they're out of there as quickly as possible and into a proper, safe, appropriate care arrangement.
Any other questions? I mean, the talk in the media is all about the people coming over in boats. Are any of those unaccompanied children, or so they're still coming at the moment at a fast rate, are they? Hence the 41 rather than 27.
Yes, so the short answer to that question is yes, and that's part of the reason why they've increased on the National Transfer Scheme, because they'll arrive in other areas, and yes, there will be children, some very young children actually, which is a change to some extent. We're getting more younger children, and I envisage that we'll see more younger children transferring to us through the National Transfer Scheme.
Gosh, how young?
They can be as young as 5, maybe sometimes younger. Sometimes babies are given to people who are prepared to transport them across, you know, wherever that may be, the channel or wherever, but they arrive as unaccompanied.
Terrifying. Any other questions? Any comments? I think, I just want to say that I think 2 or 3 years ago, we went on a visit to one of the places in town that they're living, and met quite a few of the young, none as young as 5, they were all 16 plus obviously, but they just seem like amazing young people. They've just got such drive, and they just, I mean, the ones that we spoke that could speak to us, just all they wanted to do was education, and that's why they were coming here. And it was quite humbling that, you know, something that we perhaps take a little bit for granted, they were, you know, desperate to get. So yeah, it's good that we have all these things in process to look after them when they're here.
Thank you, Councillor. I think that's a really good observation. That's absolutely, you know, that's our experience. You know, as I've said, give them the opportunity and they grasp it. And you know, regardless of the barriers in terms of language being separated or whatever, you know, they will take those opportunities, and we certainly support them to do so. And as I say, we've had some real success stories with young people, you know, completing university degrees, and you know, that's yeah, it makes it worthwhile.
Okay. So thank you for that. And yes, as Carl says, that's the first time we've had anything like that. So it is interesting to see the figures and where they're coming from. So thank you. Lovely. So moving on now to scrutiny. As far as I'm aware, we don't have any call-ins. There's no executive meetings since we had our last meeting. And do we have some decisions? Some forthcoming decisions? No decisions that have been made, but forthcoming decisions there is. Sorry, I'm just looking down here. A few forthcoming decisions, which I think we've got mostly on our agenda. We haven't got the Wharton and Stewart 2 to 3 tier school conversion, but I'm sure Councillor Wharton can give us an update if we need that at some point. John? So is there anything on the future forthcoming decisions that people would like to see on the work programme? No, just, yeah, as it is. As I say, a lot of those we have already got on our work programme. And the final thing is the work programme. So you can see there the meeting calendar. The next meeting is the 31st of October, when we have those attainment gap, social work and internal foster care recruitment. So following on from what Hamish has been talking about, update on the Ofsted action plan and the engagement and development annual report, which is always colourful. I think we were hoping that we could have something from the Youth Council or the young people to do that. Is that going to be possible? Do we know?
Still looking at that.
Okay, thank you. Even if it's something on screen, I think I mean, it would be nice for them some of the young people to be here. We've had them here before, haven't we? But if they can't be here, then on screen would be good. So, apart from that, has anybody got any comments on the work programme? John, Councillor?
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify on the 2 to 3 tier conversion. Obviously, discussions are still in place, and hopefully in the next month, Chris, if I'm correct, we should be able to make some sort of announcement, I think. Sorry, so over to you. It's a bit of a difficult one to answer, that one, at the moment.
I'll try and answer it. A paper will be published before a consultation will go out. So the notice, I think, is there's been trying to find the right time for any papers to go out with the start of the academic year, with staff about to go on holiday, which they've talked about coming out before. So I think the 3rd of October is the date in my head that I think is when we're publishing the papers. We've had notices, and obviously due to the links around cross-border, because a significant number of our pupils going to Central Bedfordshire schools in that area and vice versa, we're going to be trying to align with our colleagues in Central Bedfordshire so that we publish on the same time. So, which is why I'm probably not committing to a date, because we need to make sure that we are feeling, but early October, I think, is the date that when the published paper will come out, and we'll be then reporting, that'll be published to an executive to agree a consultation on the proposed changes to the education within the Wootton, Stewartby, Cranfield area, with the proposal to move towards a two-tier model. And then obviously that's a consultation. Everyone will have a chance to comment on that, and I think the consultation will probably be open on the 31st of October. So it may be, if Overview and Scrutiny wish to have an agenda item on it and have a conversation as part of the consultation, he says, before someone tells me whether that is possible or not, that would make sense, because it would be within the open times, and I know within Central Bedfordshire they're looking at Overview and Scrutiny as being a consultee in part of that as well. So having the discussions at Overview and Scrutiny and feeding that back in as part of the consultation, there'd be no reason why we wouldn't be able to do that here.
Yes, John.
Yes, thank you, Chris, because the issue in Wootton at the moment, it's the topic. You know, a lot of parents are asking, you know, you're getting some silly things about having to change uniforms, and so I think it's great that I know it's been Central Beds have been dragging their feet on this one, and you know, it's good to hear that at least we're getting close, and I think to let the parents know, you know, in a month's time, basically, that this is where we're going, because a lot of them are getting worried. You know, they're wanting to know about transport. Do they have to pay for transport? So I think it's really good. But I do appreciate. I know I put a lot of pressure on you. You know, but it's a lot more on Central Beds. You know, so perhaps, but it's great that we're actually getting to this stage now. So thank you once again, your team. You know, for all the work you're doing. Thank you.
It's on the forthcoming executive for the 14th of September. So you might want to let them know that you want to defer that a little if that's not the case.
I think so. It was a case of certainly spoken to colleagues in Democratic Services and to make them aware that it was going to be changed to the forthcoming notices. So it's been moved to the October one. But yeah, if it's still been showing as live, I mean, I've missed the deadline for the paper on that. Then, if that was the case, so it definitely, I think, just it feels because of it. I really agree with Councillor Willett. It's a hot topic. It's a hot topic for staff members, but I also think the start of term was not the time. We would have had to publish before schools went back, and I think it just felt like actually, because of the timelines, we have enough time. It made sense for it to be in October, in my eyes, to make sure everyone gets a chance to come back. Head teachers have a chance to brief their staff about what's, you know, because we're doing this with the schools. There's going to be no surprises when it comes out. So it felt like October was a better time for it to be going to executive. But I think we might need to then just maybe have a exceptional executive. I don't know if that's the right term, but yeah, something outside of the norm to try and align with Central Bedfordshire's executive, which falls in October as well.
Okay, thank you. I think we do probably need to be a consultee on that, though, even if it's only circulating and then seeing whether we need to discuss it or not. But yes, please. Okay. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much. And as I said, our next meeting was, and I've forgotten already, 30 something in October. 31st of October. Yeah, thank you.